Hey, hi everyone. Very happy to be here today. Like what Lauren just mentioned, I'm currently a strategy manager at a fashion tech startup. So you might be wondering why I am going to be leading a workshop in coding. So a little bit about my background. I actually studied mechanical engineering, and I used to work as a creative technologist at a fountain company in Los Angeles for 3 years. Then went to business school and then now doing more of the business work, but I still love to code and just make things with code. And yeah, I do that through creative coding, which is what I want to show you today. So for today, I want to introduce you to this tool that makes it very easy for you to make creative things with code. And Lori told me that there's a mix of people here who some of you are new to coding and some might have some quite like a pretty solid background in programming already. So for today to introduce the tool, I will be showing some examples that are quite basic so people can follow along. But really the main goal is by the end of the hour, you'll be a little bit more familiar with P5.js and can start, just playing around and making stuff on your own. So what is P5.js? P5.js is a JavaScript library that makes it very easy for people to be creative with code. You really just need to know very little, but at the same time can build like really big things, amazing things. So the agenda today, I'm just going to walk through some of the basics, and then we just kind of like build from there. I'm just going to experiment with some code. Yeah, so why don't we let's get into it so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. Give me 1 second. Okay, everyone can see my screen? Cool.
Yes.
All right. So all you need to start playing with this tool is a computer and a web browser. All you need to do is go to this website called editor.p5js.org. Yeah, so as you can see here, it's a web editor with this library built in. So I'm just going to walk through a little bit of the setup here. So in P5.js, the two main functions here, that is like the very basic of what it is. One is the setup function, and the other one is the draw function. And the setup function basically gets called once to set up, like, as you can see here, there's a function called create canvas. And it's create a canvas with 400 to 400 pixels. And then the draw loop actually gets called 60 frames per second. And this allows you to do different types of animation. Okay, so I'm just gonna show you what if I run this. So this is like how easy it is. Basically, you just put in some code and you can just click a play button and you can just right away see what you can make. So as you can see here, right now, what you have right here is basically, I'm creating a canvas of size 400 to 400 pixels. If you change here, say 600 to 600, it will just change automatically. The background here takes in RGB value, and 200, if you put only one value in, 0 is black and 255 is white. So that's why you can see a light gray here. But I can put in other values. So if I want like a red color, which is 255, 225, no, 255, 0, 0, and the background turns red. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, just feel free to interrupt me, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna put it back to something a little bit lighter.
Did you say that it refreshes how many times per second?
In the draw loops, it refreshes, it gets called 60 times per second.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so I'll show you, yeah, I'll show you when we make animation, you can see, yeah, yeah, I'll show you in a little bit. Okay, so now I want to just like make some static shapes on the screen. So there's a bunch of functions. If you want to make a circle, you can just have an ellipse function, and the two first variables are the x and y position. So I'm just going to put it at, let's say, like 100, 100, and then you can give it the size of its diameter. So let's say 50, 50. And you just click play, and you can see here. And then there are different functions where you can manipulate the shapes, I mean the colors and the stroke of these circles. So the stroke functions give it the color of the strokes. So let's say I want like a color, I mean yellow. And then you can do like stroke weight, and then this gives you the weight of the stroke. So you really can see like it's very easy. There's all these like pre-built functions where you can just, you know, just try it and then click play, and then you can see like the result right away. Why don't we try a different shape functions? Let's say like a rectangle, and you give it also a position. What if we have it at half of the width and maybe half of the height, so it's going to be smack down in the middle, and then we give it the size, the width, and the height of 100 and 100. Okay, so with rectangles, you can do different mode as well. So here, actually, the width and the height here is this point right here. And then the pre-built mode is the corner mode. So the X and Y position is at the top left corner, and then the size of the 100 and 100 is here. But if I were to put the rectangle mode at the center, you can see that it shifts. So it becomes the middle point is the X and Y position here. Okay, and you can also like, I don't want any color in my rectangle anymore. Just, you know, then you can also do no stroke. But give it some color still. The reason that I'm trying to figure out why it changed the colors here too. But if you want the color of the two shapes to be different, then you can, you know, put in, and the next one will override the first one. Okay, so this is not the only things I'm showing you. There will be more exciting stuff coming up. But I just want to build like the basic foundation for you to understand, you know, how it works, what it can do. So yeah, let's start with some static shapes. Okay, so now like what I mentioned before, that the loop function actually draws 60 frames per second, right? So I'm gonna show you now just an ellipse here. Just do 0 and Okay, so I want to show you that when we do animations, there are like different types of inputs that you can do to actually manipulate the shapes, right? So the three types that I want to show you today, the first one is using user input. The second one is giving it some sort of like a fixed equation. And the third one is this random function that gives it like random values. And that actually can create like pretty interesting generative artwork. Okay, so let's start with the first one where I give it some fixed equation. So I'm gonna now set like a variable for, so let me just do X and Y, let's start at 0. Okay, so now instead of okay. So now what I'm basically doing is that I'm going to initialize it at the point 0, 0 here, and I'm giving it each frame, it's going to increase the value X and Y by 10. And so can someone tell me what you expect it to look like?
It's going to move across the screen.
Exactly. Very fast. So you can change the values here. So this is every frame per second, it's going to move one to the right and one down. Okay. So what's interesting, and you can find a lot of tutorials online as well, is a lot of people like do kind of like physics simulations with code. And what I mean by that is if you add some like velocity and acceleration, you can build like a bouncing ball on the screen. Oh, but before I do that, let me show you something pretty cool. So as you can see here, the draw function calls 60 frames per second. And that's why you can see that it's moving from one corner to the other. But actually, the reason that you can see this is because the background is drawn every single time. So you only see one circle. But what if I put this at the setup function? Now it looks pretty interesting too, because now the background only gets drawn once. So you can see like a lot of different things that you can kind of experiment with this. What if I, kind of change?
What did you do to make it draw the background one time?
Yeah, so as you can see here, there's the setup function and then there's a draw function. The setup function only gets called once, and I put the background there. So it only gets drawn one time. And then now I'm drawing the circle that gets moved from one corner to the other 60 times per second. And that's why you can see that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. Okay. Okay, so what I want to do next is, okay, so I want to give it a little bit of a speed. Basically, like what I'm doing here, I'm actually giving it a speed, right? So I have it move one pixel per second per frame, and then 10 pixels per frame for the Y direction. But I'm gonna add it as a variable so you can see like it changing, and then you can manipulate that easily. So X equals to X. And then, so basically I'm doing the exact same thing I just did. Okay, so nothing complicated here. And then I'm also going to give it a direction so that, and what I want to do is I want the circle to bounce around. So I need to create like a border detection. Direction equals to 1.
Does does the website have a documentation too, Pat?
Yes, the website actually has really great documentation. So I can show you that at the end. But it has a lot of documentation. It has a lot of projects that the community puts out. So you can like look at their code and kind of play around from not just like from scratch as well. So in the interest of time, I'm just gonna copy what I made before. So basically what I have here is that I say that if it hits, if X position hits the width, or goes beyond, if it goes off screen to the left, then I'm gonna switch the direction. So just switch the speed. So it goes left or go right. And then this one does the same thing, but go to the bottom or goes to the top. So let's try it. And then I'm gonna put the background back here so we can just see one circle. Ooh. And a great thing about this is that it gives you a console that tells you all the errors, but because this is like supposed to be beginner friendly, or like it's a tool for like artists and designers as well. So they also try to make like these errors messages like kind of cute and like not scary. You can see like there's this flower. I don't know if it helps, but yeah. Okay.
To lower the
So,
intimidation.
yes. So basically I put the D here, but basically and start this. Right now it just detects that I am at the in this loop, so it just like went back and forth. So I'm just gonna give an initial position somewhere else. No. First time live coding, everyone. See. Okay, so now
Yeah.
you get the valve bouncing. Okay, so let's give maybe like make it a little bit not as fast.
That is so
Okay.
cool.
So another function that I want to play around, just to show you some more tools that you can play around with, is what if I give the color of the circle based on the position it is on the screen. So right now there's no color at all. So I'm just gonna give it no stroke. So there's gonna be no stroke here, but then I'm gonna put a fill, and the fill gives the RGB value. But what if I say that it's gonna, so the values here, the RGB values goes from 0 to 255, right? So what I wanna do is I want to create another variable called count. And count can be started at 0. Then I'm gonna say like every frame, let's increase it by 1. And so if count is equals to 255, then let's bring it back to 0. I'll just count here, 0, 0. So as you can anticipate here, so the RGB values, because I give 0 and 0 here, it's basically just changing the R value. So it's going to go from 0 to 255. So what you can expect here is that, what do you think it's going to look like?
It's gonna go through all the colors.
Or just
All the
red.
colors. Huh?
Wait, all the colors are just red.
Okay, let's see what it's going to look like.
Oh, from black to red. Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah.
So if you put count for all 3 positions, will it do it
Yeah.
like
What do you think it's going to look like?
there's a rainbow?
I think
I
it's
don't
going
know.
to
It might just be like gray or brown.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it just, yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Because each one increases at the same rate. So it's just sort of going through the gray
So
gradient,
basically,
right?
this looks exactly like if you were just to have one value, which is just a grayscale.
So if you did count and then for the next position, you did count -1, and then the other one count +1, would that make it do different colors?
I think it.
Still would.
No, because I think, you know
It's
why?
still relatively
Because-
close to
because
each
like
other. And
right now, it only goes to 0 to 255, but by adding up to actually, let's try it. I don't. Maybe a little bit
it
different.
would, I think it would have to be like different variable, like differences.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
because if
for
you're
each
always
one.
subtracting 1 or adding 1, like you're still within the same color
The same
scale.
range, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. This is like the type of things that like I want to kind of give you an idea of what you can explore with. Because that's pretty exciting. Okay.
Can you do gradients, Pat, in some way?
Gradients. What do you mean?
Can you do a range of values in an object?
Oh, in like say like this circle right now, it just feels like one color, right? I'm not sure if there's a function that can draw gradient. Yeah, I need to look at the documentation.
Okay.
Yeah,
There-
but
there is
also right now it's RGB value, but the fourth variable is actually its opacity. So you can actually like draw things on top of each other and kind of have that effect, which is pretty cool as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this was like what I was playing last night, and I thought it was cool. So I want to show you before I move on to the next thing. So let's yeah, it's all like symmetrical because it's at the same speed, but it just like makes pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And like if you give it different speed, then it's, you know, and you can make like, if you guys are familiar with like object-oriented programming, then you can like make objects and make it varies in size, make it varies in speed, and you know, kind of just play around. Okay, cool. The next thing I want to show you is what if, okay. All right. Okay, so this one is by giving it like a specific equations or something like that, right? So what we have here is the speed plus the position plus the speed. What if I give it like a user input? By that I mean for an example, I want to give let me just delete all this. So now I'm actually going to give, I'm going to give the position based on the mouse position. And I'm going to have to draw an ellipse again, nothing new. And now it's basically, you can see here right now it's just a mouse position, but if you were to connect this with some other types of inputs, you can kind of create like art based on some user input, which could be pretty cool as well. I want to show you how we can do. So I already introduced you to how to create rectangles and circles or ellipse, but this is just another thing that you can play around. So this is just a line. Okay, cool. What if I give it a little bit of oh, so there's also another function that can be really useful in a lot of cases, and it is a function called map, and it's basically takes in 5 variables. It takes in the value you want to map. So in this case, I want to map the mouse position. And then I give it, so the mouse position, basically the mouse X position can go from 0 to the size of the canvas, right? The width of the canvas. So it's going to go from 0 to width. Then I want to go back to the basic. I want it just to map the color the color of my line. Do you see that?
It's awesome.
Wow.
And what if I do something, say this one is X, and then I do something with Y, the Y position too. So it gives it a little bit like a gradient coming down. So this one, I'm gonna map it to height. And maybe I just do color Y. Okay, so that's the map function. There's another function that is useful in a lot of cases when you do these type of like drawing and animation as well, and it is called the rotate function. I will show you how the rotate function works, but basically you need a rotate function. So there's this rotate, but when you do this, you can see that you can't see anything. And I think because it rotates from where I think this point is. I need to check the documentation, but basically if you wanted to rotate from the point that you're drawing, in this case, X minus 10 and Y, right? What you want to do is you want to put another function called translate. And this translate function basically it brings the point of rotation to where you put the translate function. So I'm telling it to translate from the mouse X and mouse Y position. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, but let me just show you what I mean by this. And so now everything is going to be rotated from the position of the mouse, right? So so now here I don't need to map it to X and Y anymore. No. So you can see here, pi divided by 2 basically just rotated by 90 degrees. So you can see that from a horizontal line, now it's a vertical line. Okay.
And
Uh,
Pat, one question. So can you use the digital pen also instead of the mouse?
Yeah. So this basically this is a JavaScript library, and it also has different libraries where you can like integrate with this library basically. And if you want to use like actually, sorry, my answer is yes. Basically, instead of a mouse, you should be able to use a whatever you use as your mouse. In this case, like a drawing pen. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. I want to very quickly explain this rotate thing again. Let's see if we can. Okay, so the reason that you can't see this because it's rotating around this point right here. But maybe if I were to rotate a little bit less, you can see it. Yeah, so you see it was here. And then I rotate by pi over 10, and it moves to this position because it's rotate about the the 0 point. This is the axis of rotation. But if you want to rotate it from if you want to rotate about its own like within its own shape, that's why you need to put in this function called translate, and this basically just translates the point of the axis of rotation. So right now I basically, so before here, I'm gonna put the rect mode to center. So I draw this square at the middle, right? And then I say I want to rotate it by pi over 10, and it moves to this point. But now I said, no, I actually want to rotate it, but I still want it to be at the center. So I put in this translate. So right now, everything is translated about this point. And so when you draw the rectangle, you can put it at 0 and 0. Okay, so this one without rotation, this one with rotation. And what we can do is, just for you to see, maybe it's in radians, so maybe do a smaller. There, so it's just rotating around the same point. And you can see like you can do this in big shapes, you can change the size of it, and you can just make like kind of cool stuff with it. Okay, so I have 20 minutes left. So let me move to the next thing. The next thing I want to show you is a random function, which is a pretty cool function as well. Okay, so now that we're playing with a rectangle, why don't we just continue with that? Okay, so I'm not giving it any user input anymore. So this stuff. Okay,
One question. I'm sorry.
yeah,
What would be the what would be the size of this file if you implement it in a website or something?
I have not implemented it in a website yet, so I cannot answer that question. Yeah.
The site of the size of the
Oh,
font.
size of like what it would look like on the screen?
No, just memory size and memory. You know.
The size of the file is teeny. I mean, it just depends on the amount of code, but the size of the library itself is really what would determine if it was an issue or not, I think.
I
And it's not, I've used it in lots of websites. It's not, the only problem I've ever run into is when you have memory leaks. Like it can be memory intensive in a browser if you're doing lots of 3D rendering or other things, but the size of like this file is like, you know, it's nothing. It's just that text.
Okay, thanks.
Cool, thanks, Tom. Okay, all right, let me just try a random function. So a random function basically just gives you a random value, and you can put in I think it's exclusive of the second value. And I don't think you have to put in 0, but usually I do put in the 0. So I'm going to say I want the x value to be between 0 and width. Give me a random number. And then I want the y value to be between 0 and height. Okay. So now because I put my background here, what you're going to see is yeah, just a bunch of squares in different locations. What if I also vary the size as well? And now just maybe putting it all together with what we did before. There. Okay, so yeah, this is the random function. So I just want to recap what I've shown you today. So I show you some static shapes that you can draw, whether it be an ellipse, a rectangle, or a line, but you can do many other types of things too. You can even like have points as like vertex points and then like connect them together, or you can do an arc to make like a semicircle. I show you how to varies like the styles of the shapes, right? And then to make animation, we went through 3 different types. The user input, and I did it based on the mouse position. Then we did it based on the equations. And the third one is with a random function. So let me just like quickly show you how. Okay, so if you go to p5js.org. Okay, so this is the place that if you want to play around with p5.js is probably the best tool. So where we were just at here, editor. But it has really good documentation. So you can start with, their getting started page, which mostly is like what I walked through with you today, but it might be like a good way to just take a look again. But I think a lot of the times when I have like questions about like what I can do with p5.js, basically you can just type your question, like the function that you want to play, then p5.js, and like as you can see here, the documentation is pretty good. It tells you exactly like the type of variables that you need to put, and gives you like some sort of example of how to create that as well. Yeah. YouTube, I would suggest you look at the Coding Train, which is a YouTube channel that teaches like basic programming, but basically Daniel Schiffman, who is the creator of that channel, uses p5.js as a tool to teach programming, and he makes a lot of different kinds of games or like cool artworks as well. So yeah, so we have about 10 minutes left. If you guys have any questions or want to learn more about something, let's use this time.
Yes, Pat. One question. So what's the I heard of I think it's called Lottie files. What's the difference between this and something like that, if you know?
Lottie files?
I think that's what it's called. There's the JavaScript, it's a JSON file, and apparently it's very similar to this. You code it in a JSON file, and I think they're called Lottie files, and there's a whole kind of section about this, very similar to animation and making artwork like that. But apparently they're super small files. Like Tom said, if there's any similarities.
I am not able to answer that. I have no
Okay.
idea what Lottie files is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any libraries that do the completed animations on P5?
Can you repeat your question?
Like, are there libraries that do like completed animations on P5?
With completed animations, as in like
rather than us doing that, then if there are libraries who do what's called full animations, like it's completed animation.
No, I don't. So basically, this library allows you to do those animations. There are resources out there where people already make a lot of these pretty neat animations that, like, for example, this website, Open Processing, where you can see these are the types of projects that people have worked on, and you can, and they share their source code. So you can just kind of like go and look around. Yeah, but to answer your question, there's no, because it's just like a library that allows you to do this. And yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I shared the website on the chat, Pat.
I took a quick glance at the Lottie files thing, and I think they meet different use cases. This one's programmatic and you can do stuff with it. Lottie files looks like it's, I'm sure I'm underselling it and it can do more, but it looks like it's more a way for designers to create like quickly embeddable animations of little graphics as opposed to it being like a real graphical coding library.
I see. Thanks. Who spoke?
This is Jared Sirla.
Okay, thanks, Jared. Thank you.
Mhm.
I had a question earlier. I'm not sure if you hit on it and I missed it, but when you were doing no fill and no stroke, I noticed it was impacting all of the drawings, and I was wondering if there was a way to target it so it only impacts one shape and not the other.
Yes, yes. So so you can overwrite. Yeah, so let's say like you have an ellipse. Then you have a rectangle. So if you put fill here at black and then you do another, and you just write another one, it basically overwrites the first one.
There's also a push and pop function
Mm.
that you can use to like break off certain chunks of code that you want to reset every time through.
And you should be able to define like a circle object and a square object too, right? And then programmatically call those within your draw function.
Yeah.
Pat, this is Lori. I'm wondering if you can share some of the, and I had to step away for 1 minute, so I apologize if you did this, but I'm wondering if you could share some of your favorite P5 drawings that you've done or that other people have done, just to show some more examples. It's really cool.
Sure. So let me just see what I have.
Yeah, when I saw your advertisement for the workshop, I was excited about drawing.
Yeah, so there's this this guy who posts a lot on Tumblr, like generative art, and he made something like this, and it actually is pretty simple, but you know, with just like breaking down the math and everything, and just like, as you can see here, I was using like a there's like an opacity like function here too. You can see that like colors kind of like map from each other, which I think is pretty cool. So this is what I did. This one is, this one doesn't work. Let's see. So I made this one with the mouse.
Very cool.
And then there's this algorithm, there's this thing called a metaball, where basically like, this is like how they make, what do you call? Like if you have seen these types of shapes where it's like circles merging with each other, you can like, once you know like the physics, I mean like the math behind it, this is what it is. So I also like to kind of play around with like some math equations just to see what kind of cool things you can make it with. And then, so this is with like a adding some physics into it. This is like having like multiple pendulums that, you know, start at almost the exact same place, but not really. And it creates this like pretty chaotic movement. But I thought this is pretty beautiful because it looks like someone dancing. And you know, you can create these type of things, but you can also like make games. So I also made some games with it too. And I think it's a pretty like good way to kind of like learn how to code. Because like you can see exactly like your code implemented basically. Yeah, I think that's probably all I'm gonna show. Right
Can you
now.
really play that Tetris game?
Yeah, you can. This game, yeah.
Okay, great.
This is awesome. I'm wondering, I sort of have a question for everyone else, and I'm just wondering, based on this amazing stuff that Pat has shown, what are people interested in doing, or what does it give you the ideas to do? And so I turned my video off because I'm eating, but I'm still here. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, I know Crystal is an artist. I can totally see Crystal doing cool things, and just curious what people's ideas are from this.
I was thinking if the way Pat was drawing those drawings and creating motion, if there's a way to create like a I guess like a layout or like a background where you create like an atmospheric perspective where you can create a depth, a middle ground, and a foreground. Would that be possible? Or I guess you just implement that in if you want. So
like,
yeah, so like creating a perspective going in. Yeah.
Yes, you can. So you can do it just by kind of faking it as well. And you can do that by, you know, like just have things that are closer to you be like a bigger size, and then things that are not be like a smaller size. At the same time, right now we're just drawing everything in like 2D, right? But you can also draw stuff in 3D in P5.js as well. And it has a lot of pre-built functions that you can play around with. I haven't done much with those, but with like the meta ball that I was making, there is a this whole thing with like WebGL where you can do like the 3D stuff with the colors and the camera and the angle. But that's something I want to explore, definitely.
Great. Awesome.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
3D stuff is super intense. You can do in there for sure. It's wild.
What was that? What was that, Tom?
There's basically a mode you can enable. It's called WebGL, which I forget what it stands for, but it like turns on 3D rendering, and then you have basically X, Y, and Z axis, and you can move the camera around and do anything you want.
That's awesome. Thank you.
That's like when I was talking about memory, like you start to get into using lots of memory sometimes. It's really one thing I've noticed, like trying to use P5 in production. If you're doing really experimental or generative art and stuff, if you like accidentally leave, it's just really easy to create memory leaks that'll crash your browser. I mean, when you're playing with it, you'll still just make amazing stuff, but then lots of times you have to go back in and figure out like why something is blowing up your browser.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I think we probably should close up soon. I'm sure there's more conversation to be had. I'll turn back on my video. But I know that at least several of us are going to have to run to another meeting. But this